welcome to the TechCast with Secure Dynamics. With me today, I have a past guest, Les Correa. Les is the global head of application security at Estee Lauder. Welcome back, Les.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Ashwin.
And thanks for that amazing first episode. For people who haven't watched it, I highly recommend you go take a look at it. We covered the history of software development and how we even got into the DevOps and into DevSecOps. So this time, Les, I want to put you on the spot and ask you if somebody is looking to make DevSecOps a success, which obviously everybody wants to, right? What are the components of DevSecOps, if you can break it down, that really drives its success?
Wow, that's a loaded question, Ashwin. Well, I guess if I went into the standard people process technology as such, I think that the biggest one is people, right? Both DevOps and DevSecOps embrace agile transformation, and there are many processes and cultural aspects to it. Governance is crucial and entails committee representation, both also from the business, development, IT operations, and security. Now, it also entails a cultural change, right? Because it involves agile as such. So a cultural change to agile is crucial because implementing automation is a big thing both in DevOps and DevSecOps. Implementing automated kind of DevSecOps in the pipeline uh, uh, is important because if you don't have that agile kind of change, you end up focusing on a tool centric kind of environment where you're really looking at a pipeline as a tool for successful and efficient software delivery, which is the wrong way of doing things. Okay.
So let me quickly interject you over there, right? So, for in terms you mentioned cultural transformation, and I go back to my early years as a software developer, right? It's like, okay, I compile my software and then throw it over the fence. Somebody else picks it up and does QA. And so, how does somebody like me, and again, I'm dating myself, but how does somebody who's been kind of in the silos of, okay, I'm doing design, I'm doing development, I'm doing testing, I'm doing security after the fact, how does that transformation come about? What have you seen when you talk about cultural change? What does a leader do?
So, well, first of all, you need to just everything is fast today, right? Because it's your success is based on the outcomes that come out fast. Anyway, the biggest change is actually going to be raising awareness and creating that the people characteristics, right, which is critical. By raising awareness that security is a shared responsibility and everyone's responsibility. So, in other words, you don't have that silo of security being different from these other groups, if you will, so which is development, business, and so on. So, how do you do that? You cascade security awareness by establishing a training and training security champions. So you could have somebody from development or IT operations, and training them to be your champions, as against having getting employing more security folks. You just raise that awareness. The other thing is what makes it other successful kind of ways of reducing friction is also creating security practice communities that enable cross training. So, in other words, security folks also have to learn how these other groups work, as well as the business folks need to know how operations works and so on. So, you create this communities where you share knowledge, and therefore you're all thinking as one, if you will. You obviously need a organizational buy-in. So there is organizational change management. So the way you communicate, communicating means chat ops, and you use things fast and collaborating, which is vital as well. So that's that part of it in terms of the people. The process, again, you need to develop, right? I said developing that, raising that awareness, right? You create minimum standards into your areas of product development or and change management, for example. Project management is which is different, and how you communicate with it. When I said chat ops, okay, and you develop policies, metrics, change management, and so on and so forth.
So, one question over there. So, in a typical waterfall like model, you typically have somebody who has the hat of a program manager, right? And he or she is the one actually kind of being the glue logic, if you will, between these various organizations. In a DevOps, DevSecOps mindset, is there a entity like program management, or is it a shared responsibility across this?
It is. There is.
Okay.
You don't break those. You don't break the organization, right? But what you do is you raise awareness, so everything is kind of shared, and you're working together, if you will, so that your project managers understand what is the minimum standards for these developers. Are the developers trained before they start doing things? Are they aware of how we build things and so on and so forth in the environment? How did they communicate with each other, and how do you share, as against being afraid to? It's really collaborative as well, and things have changed, and today everything's at speed. As against raising friction and being afraid to communicate, you openly communicate, but you also have this, that standard goals, if you will, to develop fast at its speed and so on and so forth. That also means change management changes, right? You don't go through a process which takes days to make changes, right? Things change. Sometimes you need to move forward, except for the big critical changes where things, go through that process. Otherwise, you log and then revisit as such. Procurement changes, third party, and so on and so forth, and as well as risk assessment practices as well. From a technology perspective, the big thing is tools. I don't want to delve into the tools because there are lots of tools. Basically, you need to integrate and automate orchestration, discovery, detection, and so on. Today, as we know, development code 80 to 90% is open source. And in fact, there are variations of that. So it's important that you have a proper bill of materials, you manage that correctly. And once it's gone into production, you're monitoring that as well so that you can do the automated patching. Now, DevSecOps introduces something which is not well practiced, if you will, in the DevOps world of logging. And logging in terms of, because today we do all these things of logging, operating system, and somebody logs in, does things and does various actions. But there's very little, if anything, done in the development world of errors and so on and so forth. So all that whole thing, and it's important because cloud is a big thing as well, right? So everything is being done and digitized into the cloud, where you have areas such as, you build servers today, everything is code. You build servers by, scripting. You build containers by scripting and so on and so forth. So it's important that you have this whole automation is like a big thing for DevSecOps, and doing it right as well, because you have even serverless technology where servers come up. It's a misnomer, but basically servers come up only for a specific function, and the only way that happens is through APIs. We can delve into some details at some later episode, as well as microservices. There are things where applications are decoupled, so they do very specific things. They appear and disappear, if anything.
Yeah, no, I think this is super useful. I think the last part that you mentioned, which I could not agree more, which is the part of the logging needs to start at the time of development, right? Not at the time of implementation of production, right? So I think, and I don't think we'll have time to get into this, but just as a teaser for our next one is, ultimately, by doing DevSecOps, the goal is to reduce the risk for the organization, right? So if you were to have a 1-minute teaser for our next episode, which is how does implementing DevSecOps actually help the CISO reduce risk in his or her organization? Just a preamble into what we will get into.
I could actually say probably automation is the big thing. It is automating security and all these other aspects of monitoring and so on and so forth. That is, I guess a one-liner. Because today, everything's at speed,
right?
And it's both the cloud concepts as well as DevSecOps and DevOps, if you will.
Understood. Great. So again, let's stay safe. Looking forward to catching up with you in 2021.
Yeah, happy holidays to all of you.
Happy holidays to you. Thank you.